Hi everybody. So today you guys are learning about diagramming sentences, but we're not just diagramming sentences, we're treeing them. So we're going to learn about that. So learning to diagram sentences with intransitive verbs. We're going to show you the basics of what it means to diagram sentences and everything that is involved with that. Because we're going to take a treeing model, and I'll explain what that means. And today we're just going to learn how to diagram with these intransitive verbs. So let's get started. Okay, so here is some reminders. So parts of a sentence. Every sentence can be broken down into two basic parts, and this is the important thing for you to remember. This is fundamental. Hopefully you know this already. Hopefully you aced our last test. Our subject. This is always going to be the noun phrase that does the action. Remember, not just any noun phrase, the noun phrase that does the action or is being described in the sentence. And the predicate, the verb phrase that shows action or shows description of the subject. So let me give you some examples. Example, the little boy kicked the ball. Okay, who did the activity in this first sentence? The little boy. And what was his action? What did he do? He kicked the ball. Kicked is an action that he did. Now, I'd like to point something out right here. The ball, right, is a noun, but it is not doing the activity. The ball is not doing anything. It's receiving an action. So, does anybody remember what that's called? A noun phrase that receives action instead of doing the action? I'm going to be like Dora right now. You got it. It's the object. Hopefully you had it right. So the boy is the noun phrase. The little boy is the noun phrase that's doing the action. And the action he did was kick the ball. Okay? Now I'd like to point out a complete subject is everything that is included describing that noun. But you're going to have one main noun. One main, or maybe two main nouns. You could have lots of them. But the main nouns that are doing the action. All right? In this sentence, it's boy. In the same way, everything that has to do with the verb is in the predicate. Kick the ball is all a phrase. It's a verb phrase. It goes together. But the main verb is kicked. Okay, now let's look at an example where a noun phrase is being described. Here's your example. The little boy is quite cute. Little boy is still our subject. Is our linking verb. Hopefully you remember that. And we could say it equals. The little boy equals quite cute. He is being described. Okay, hopefully that is all just a review for you. Let's keep going. Okay, so here's a basic concept. Treeing sections. Now, unlike diagramming sentence, which most of you might have seen diagramming sentences in the, I'm not going to say the old-fashioned way, in one style, but you're going to see a tree, and we call it treeing because we're breaking down the parts. It's like this is our center, and then we have branches, and then we have leaves, and we kind of separate, okay? And this is what I want you to see. In treeing models, in treeing sentences, we break down the biggest section into the smaller sections, okay? So if you think back to your types of sentences, this is a what kind of sentence? If it has one subject and one predicate, it is a, yay, you got it, simple sentence. So for a simple sentence, we have this one clause, okay? Now, if we needed to, we could have one sentence and then a clause and then a noun phrase and a verb phrase, and then we could have another clause with a noun phrase and a verb phrase, but we're not there yet. So we're breaking it down into smaller parts, okay? So you will always have a sentence, which will be marked with an S. You will always have a noun phrase as your subject, and that will be marked NPH, noun phrase, subject. You will always have a verb phrase as your predicate, and it will be marked VPH, predicate. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so now that we've gotten that, oh, let me back up for a second. Your subject will always stay basically the same. It's going to be a noun phrase. But in our predicate, we have a lot of different types of verbs, okay? And that's what changes the way that our sentence is really set up. So we're going to get into that. Okay, With that in mind, this is a reminder. There are two main types of verbs, action and linking. This kind of reminds us of the beginning. There's also helping verbs, but they just add on to either an action verb or a linking verb. A helping verb, it helps, it never stands alone. So just a reminder, action verbs show action. The little boy kicked the ball. That's something he physically did, okay? Linking verbs link the subject to a description. You can replace them with an equal sign, okay? The little boy is quite cute. Is not something the little boy does. He is simply existing. It's showing a state of existence. He equals cute, okay? You could even say the little boy seems quite cute, or the little boy looks quite cute. Anything that shows those link, okay? That's why it's called a linking verb. Now, hopefully you remember that. Today, we're going to look at a type of action verb. Hopefully you remember intransitive verbs are a type of action verb. Let's take a look. Okay, so types of action verbs. We have two types of action verbs. We have transitive action verbs and intransitive action verbs. Again, this should all be a reminder, but I want you to be clear on it. Okay, so what's the difference? Transitive verbs transfer onto an object. Okay, they have an object that they are placed on. The little boy kicked the ball, and I want you to see the example. Ball is our object, and this is why. Ball is the object. It answers the question, what did the little boy kick? He kicked the ball, right? That's what I mean by an object. The verb is being placed onto a noun, okay? But an intransitive verb is one that does not have an object, okay? The same exact verb could be intransitive if it doesn't have an object. If you think of our example that we often used, I eat every night at 7 o'clock. That's intransitive. I eat a hamburger every night at 7 o'clock. Suddenly I can answer the question, what do I eat? I eat a hamburger, so it'd be transitive. So intransitive verbs do not have an object. Okay, example, the little boy kicked ridiculously. Now, if we try to answer the question, what did the little boy kick? If I said he kicked ridiculously, that doesn't make sense. He did not kick the ridiculous. That might be how he's kicking, but not what he's kicking. So it does not have an object. These are the intransitive verbs. These are the ones that we are going to be looking at today. All right, you ready? You want to pause and take notes? Hopefully you know this. I'm moving on. All right, here you go. Woohoo! Intransitive verb formula. Every type of verb has a different sentence formula. Every sentence will start with a noun, phrase, subject. That's just what we have, noun, phrase, subject. But every predicate will look slightly differently. When we are working with an intransitive verb, and this is my shorthand for intransitive verb, INV, intransitive verb, okay? You will always have a subject and an intransitive verb. And then sometimes, that's what these parentheses mean. This means you can have it or you could not have it. Sometimes you will have an adverb phrase. The ADV stands for adverb and PH stands for phrase. Now maybe that doesn't make very much sense, but let's look at some examples. Okay, here we go. This is what treeing is like. This is what I want you guys to get. Pause and write down this example. I'm going to look for it in class. Pause and write down this example. All right, treeing examples. So, treeing, we're separating the parts. We start with S. It's a sentence. If we had to, we could put clause here, but you guys are not, you're only going to be looking at simple sentences. So we just start with S, okay? Our two next sections, our two phrases, our two biggest phrases are the noun phrase, subject, and the verb phrase, predicate. Those are the only phrases found in this sentence. Okay, noun phrase, subject, verb phrase, predicate. Okay, now this is what I want you to see. The subject always stays the same. In this noun phrase, okay, the noun phrase is, the noun is boy. The noun from the noun phrase is boy. But two adjectives that describe that noun are the and little. So they go up into the noun phrase. the little boy is all one phrase. Does that make sense? Now we're left with the verb phrase. The only thing we have in this sentence is an intransitive verb. The intransitive verb kicked. We don't know what he kicked. We just know he kicked. The little boy kicked. Okay? So that's our first example. If we look at our formula, cross this out of your mind. We have the subject, noun phrase subject, and the intransitive verb. That's our example. All right, I'm going to kick it up a notch. Everybody ready? Here we go. I added one word, ridiculously. The little boy kicked ridiculously. Again, our sentence is, at the top, we separate that between our noun phrase, which is our subject, and our verb phrase, which is our predicate. We will always have those two parts, okay? The subject stayed the same, so we left it the same. But this time we had two components. We had the intransitive verb, and we had an adverb. The adverb describes the verb, so we need to put them together in a verb phrase. That's the verb phrase, okay? We're basically putting the smallest pieces together. What are all the sections? All right, take note of this. Write down questions for me. If there's something that you don't understand, I want you to write down questions right now. Mrs. Zonker, what don't I understand? 3, 2, 1. All right. Here's the big one. Ooh, you might be like, ooh, this is scary. There's crazy stuff here. Now, it is building on all of those parts of speech that you learned at the beginning of the year, those building blocks of language, okay? I believe in you. You can do this. I want to show you this one last example. Okay. So here's your last option with an intransitive verb. You can have a subject, noun phrase subject, okay? Or this is sentence. Sentence, noun phrase subject, verb phrase predicate. We got that. The little boy, all describe boy together, right? Now we have kicked is our intransitive verb. But then we have another phrase here. We have an adverb phrase. Hopefully you remember that from our parts of speech. Adverb phrases are almost always prepositional phrases. Remember prepositional phrases? They show a relationship. When you were doing something, how hard you were doing something, okay? So here it says the little boy kicked during the fight. Our preposition is during, and that's one preposition. And within this, we have a new noun phrase. We're breaking the sentence down into its smallest parts. We're trying to find the smallest itty bitty parts that we can find, okay? Within this bigger phrase, this is one phrase, we have a smaller phrase. So within this big sentence, we have two major phrases. The little boy and kicked during the fight. Okay? But then we have a smaller phrase, this adverb phrase or prepositional phrase. Then we have a smaller phrase. The fight is another noun phrase unto itself with an adjective and a noun. Okay? This is what we're going to try to do. We're going to practice lots of different examples in class, kind of figure it out. But the biggest thing that I want you to be able to do is to break down these sentences into their smaller parts. All right, I think that's enough for one night. Bye.